My name's Greg Knapp. This is the Greg Knapp Experience, your 20-minute thrill ride for your workout or your commute. Stop calling January 6th an insurrection and call it what it really was. Democrats, their voting bill, that's the real threat to democracy. North Korea claims Kim Jong-il invented burritos. New White House strategy on COVID is, quote, hold on and hope the worst is over soon. End quote. That's great. And sorry. And if you use Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App, the IRS wants to know more about your transactions. It's all coming up this edition of the Greg Knapp Experience. Let's go. Man, I cracked myself up. I don't know. It's making me laugh today. Just the stuff we're talking about. And because, look, eventually you've got to laugh or cry. And I would much rather laugh. So let's start with today's January 6th. Oh, no. We're going to have another insurrection. We're going to have a coup. It's going to be a revolution. Now, look, what happened on January 6th last year was a riot. No doubt about it. There were people there who rioted, who destroyed government property. Some engaged in acts of violence. Absolutely. And the people who did that are being punished. Hundreds have been arrested. Hundreds are being punished. It was not an insurrection. It was not a coup. It was not a revolution. And I love what Jeffrey Scott Shapiro wrote here in the Wall Street Journal. You know, he's a lawyer, served as an assistant attorney general for the District of Columbia and a senior advisor to the U.S. Agency for Global Media. And he says, stop calling January 6th an insurrection because that's a legal term that actually has meaning. And it's not what the media and the Democrats keep trying to say it is. And, well, we all know the reason. The narrative the Democrats want you to believe is Trump tried to start a coup. Trump and his deplorables were part of an insurrection. And the only thing that stopped us from becoming Venezuela is well, the Capitol Police, and they stopped it all. And evidently, I mean, come on, man. Words have to have meaning. The continuous mislabeling of this as an insurrection is the example of how a false narrative can gain currency and cause dangerous injustice, says Shapiro. And then he gets into some details of this, right? There are important criminal charges that should not go unaddressed. We just talked about them. But the hundreds of, quote, capital breach cases listed at the Justice Department's prosecution page, not one of them is a charge of insurrection. So think about that. We've been told over and over and over, it's insurrection. It was a try at a revolution. They were trying to overthrow the government. No one has been charged with insurrection or with overthrowing the government. You know why? Because there's no evidence of that. But they continue to say it because they want you to believe that all the Republicans are about to destroy democracy because they're hoping that will help them win in the midterms. And man, they need help in the midterms. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, one defendant charged with insurrection under U.S. law because insurrection is a legal term and there are specific elements, and no prosecutor would dare mislabel the negligent homicide or manslaughter or murder, right? They're distinct crimes, so they're not going to label this insurrection. But see, the media and the Democrats don't care. They want everyone to believe that it was an insurrection led by Trump and the Republicans and the deplorables, and they're all white supremacists, and some of them might even believe that, but it's really about whatever it takes so Democrats win and Republicans lose. Okay, so then he goes and looks at the dictionary definition of insurrection. An act or instance of revolting against civil authority or an established government. A usage note adds that the term implies an armed uprising that quickly fails or succeeds. They have proved that no one brought weapons in, firearms at least, right? Insurgency is a condition of revolt against the government that is less than an organized revolution that is not recognized as a belligerency. And they go on and on and on and on and on. But organized use of violent force in the aim of replacing one government or political system with another is what this big umbrella is. But that's not what happened on January 6th. In fact, the demonstrators who unlawfully entered the Capitol during the Electoral College count were unarmed, had no intention of overthrowing the U.S. constitutional system or engaging in a conspiracy against the United States, because many of them believed, however erroneously, that the U.S. constitutional system was in jeopardy from voter fraud, and so they lashed out in their way to protect the system. They wanted to protect the system. They saw themselves as defending the Constitution and the United States of America. Now, like I said, you can debate that all day long, but that's not an insurrection. The law, those who violated the law inside the U.S. Capitol should be prosecuted, of course, but dramatizing a riot as an organized, racist, armed insurrection is false reporting, dangerous political gaslighting. The misuse of words, especially involving criminal accusations, can easily result in overreaching enforcement of the law and a chilling effect on free speech. We're already seeing it. Because the media and the Democrats, they want that to happen to the people they see as their enemies. See, it's not about America to them. It's about power, and it's about the next election. And unfortunately, I see most politicians on both sides all about their own power in the next election. Is it just me? Ronald Reagan said this. He said, candidates claim when they look at Washington, they see a cesspool. But once they get elected on the promise of changing it, big government seduces them, and suddenly it feels more like a hot tub. Now, there are a few standouts who continue to see it as a cesspool or a swamp and want to clean it up, but it seems like the majority get in there and they say, man, this feels like a nice hot tub. Yeah, let me get involved with everything going on in here. I can become part of the system. Oh, yeah, maybe I can leave a rich man or woman. Yeah. Oh, by the way, also, Democrats know we're in a situation here wrapping up the first year of the Biden presidency, and it's been atrocious. His disapproval ratings are at an all-time high. His approval ratings are at an all-time low for him. You got inflation problems, energy problems, illegal immigration problems, crime, COVID, Afghanistan. 25 Democrats so far retiring from the House. They need something. They need a distraction. They need something to give them some momentum. So Trump and his deplorables tried to do an insurrection. You're going to elect those guys again? Yeah. Got to have the white supremacist boogeymen. And that's what I think you're going to be seeing for the foreseeable future. Oh, and what is Pelosi going to do now with her investigation into insurrection, so-called? Well, we're hearing now that she's wanting her committee to hold primetime hearings and maybe seek an indictment of Trump for obstructing Congress. Now, they've already impeached him twice, so I don't know what's going to happen there. But did you see what Mark Elias said, the Democratic election lawyer and House insider? He tweeted this December 20, quote, "My prediction for 2022, before the midterm election, we will have a serious discussion about whether individual Republican House members are disqualified by Section 3 of the 14th Amendment from serving in Congress. We may even see litigation." So you're talking about trying to do an insurrection. How about trying to remove members of a different party just because you disagree with them politically, which is really what that's all about. Give me a break. Hey, just a second, I want to tell you how Stephanopoulos, the former Clintonite, who is now, of course, a big media guy, he claims Hillary Clinton supporters didn't riot after the 2016 election. Is that true? First, if you're enjoying the show, I'm asking you to tell 3 friends to tell 3 friends about it so that we can grow the movement. The movement is to push back on the left's view of America as being this horrible, awful, evil, systemically racist country and rally around the idea that America is exceptional, and that exceptionalism is based on the founding documents and especially our Constitution. So please tell 3 friends to tell 3 friends to subscribe to the show wherever you can listen to a podcast like you're listening right now, and to like my Facebook page, the Greg Knapp Experience Facebook page. You keep up with everything I'm doing on that page. Thanks so much. Appreciate you more than you know. So Stephanopoulos last Sunday on his big show, on the Sunday shows, he comes out and he says, yeah, Hillary Clinton supporters didn't recognize the 2016 election as legitimate, but they didn't take the same action as the Trump supporters. CEO of Democracy for America, Yvette Simpson, was on with him on This Week, and she claimed that there was no precedent for the January 6th riots at the U.S. Capitol. The two were discussing a poll. The poll said a third of Americans felt violence against the government was justified. Okay? Gretchen Clayson reporting. So here's what you hear from Yvette. I mean, this is purely the Republican camp. The reality is, even the poll suggested the Democrats agreed that this was not about democracy. This is about ruining democracy, not protecting it. Well, I'm glad you got the Democrats saying that. So did we miss the summer of rioting? Did we miss that those were not Republicans? Hey, to ABC's credit, they had on analyst Sarah Isker, and she said this. Wait a second. 25% of the Democrats said violence was acceptable in that poll. In 2017, a third of Hillary Clinton voters said Donald Trump was not legitimately elected. So you're saying this is unprecedented? Great point. Thank you, Ms. Isker. Stephanopoulos, though, said Hillary supporters did not take the same action. Well, not in the Capitol building, that's true, but police arrested more than 200 rioters in Washington, D.C., January 2017. Riots broke out immediately after President Trump's swearing-in ceremony. Remember that? 4 businesses underwent significant damage due to vandalism. 6 police officers sustained minor injuries. 1 limousine was torched. That's all from NBC News reporting at the time. Yeah, and remember, Rand Paul and his wife were accosted on the street to the point that police officers had to intervene to protect them. Oh, and of course, you remember the Bernie Sanders supporter that shot up the baseball practice and was targeting Republicans and almost killed one of them. No. Only Republicans do that. It's unprecedented what happens. Anti-Trump protests also erupted after Trump was inaugurated in New York, Seattle, Dallas, Chicago, Portland, resulting in at least 1 man being shot in Seattle. Liberal groups praised the work of the protesters, many of whom traveled from around the country to come to D.C. to rail against Trump's illegitimate election, which inspired the Women's March later that month. And it was there that we had Madonna telling a crowd that she had, quote, thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House, end quote. Well, she only thought about it. She didn't do it. You're right. Oh, absolutely. Thoughts are okay. But despite his violent and divisive rhetoric, many Democratic leaders and politicians attended the march, including Senator Elizabeth Warren. You know what she told the crowd? Quote, "We can whimper, we can whine, or we can fight back. Me, I'm here to fight back." I don't think that's a very good Elizabeth Warren, Greg. I'm working on it. I'm sorry about that. Doesn't that sound a lot like what Trump maybe said to his supporters that supposedly made them become insurrectionists? Isker, the analyst for ABC, stated this. "When I look forward to 2024, I'm deeply concerned by these numbers," she was looking at another poll, "because what it says to me is that people on both sides are not ready to accept the results of the next election." I think she's right. I think there are people on both sides that are going to say no matter what happened that it was illegitimate, and that's a shame. And part of that is the fault of our politicians in making sure that the voting is on the up and up and that everybody can say, yep, that's open, that's transparent. So Stephanopoulos, though, jumped in and said, "You mean both sides?" And she said, yeah, you look back at 2017, look at the ABC poll on whether Trump was legitimately elected. It was about 6 to 8 points off of this one right now. Not that far off. Hillary Clinton asked in 2017, was Trump legitimately elected point blank? She did not say yes. She said she had questions. End quote. So you think Democrats, if Donald Trump runs again, if Donald Trump wins in 2024, you think Democrats are going to think he was legitimately elected? You got to be kidding me, Isker said. She is dead on. And this is why we really must root out the voter fraud, have voter photo ID, reel in some of these things that we did during COVID that were for emergencies, like just mailing out absentee ballots to everybody. It's just opening it up for fraud. We got to have poll workers from both sides, equal amounts, watching this stuff. It's got to be the most transparent election ever, because no matter who wins, the other side is going to say something went wrong. Don't you think? Meanwhile, Molly Hemingway and Tristan Justice over at the Federalist are pointing out that Biden's FBI is now joining with Nancy Pelosi, and they're blocking the Republicans from getting the same information to investigate January 6th that they're giving to the Democrats. What? The FBI told Indiana Republican Representative Jim Banks it will not provide Republicans the same information provided to Pelosi's handpicked committee, consisting only of Democrat-appointed members. There are a couple Republicans, picked by Pelosi. For the first time ever, Pelosi blocked the minority party participation in this committee, because every time before this time, the minority gets to pick the people on the committee. This time she said, no, you can't have the people you want. I'm picking the people from your party. And she picked the people that were never Trumpers. Great. So here's what they said. We respectfully refer you to the Select Committee regarding issues of access to records and information. That's what the FBI wrote to the Republicans. Wait, all congressmen and all congresswomen should have access to that information. Pelosi took what she admitted was the unprecedented step of refusing the appointments made by the Republican leader. Yeah, we know. On September 3rd, Representative Banks asked FBI Director Christopher Wray to give Republican lawmakers the same briefing offered to the Democrats on the progress of the FBI's investigation. Not even asking for what Pelosi's doing, just asking for what the FBI has on the investigation of January 6th, because we know partial findings have been released. And it says the FBI found scant evidence that the Capitol riot was an organized plot to overturn the president election result. Scant evidence. That's why they haven't charged anybody with it. So, pursuant to the rules of the House of Representatives, the minority party in Congress does retain the right to the same information provided to the majority party, and the FBI is saying, nope, we're not going to do it. So, the committee has asked, get this. Look at the stuff that Nancy Pelosi is doing with her committee. They've asked dozens of telecom, email, social media companies to preserve information on the activities of more than 100 citizens going all the way back to April 2020. Now, it's kept secret which individuals they're doing that with. But it was leaked to CNN that it included many members of Congress, and that they asked the companies to not notify the people they're targeting, and to contact the committee if they're unable or unwilling to avoid alerting the targets. So let's say you're a target of this and you don't even know, so you can't protest and go to court and say, we need to see what kind of evidence this committee has to go after my information and my records and track me and spy on me. Nope, they're just doing it. In the 3 rounds of subpoenas issued by the Speaker's Select Committee to date, a majority of those sought for testimony were simply involved with the same-day White House rally and weren't involved with the riot at the Capitol. There was a peaceful protest down the street, and some of the people went down to the Capitol and did the riot. The rest of them never did anything violent and weren't involved with it at all. And most of the people they're issuing the subpoenas to are those people. So they're trying to conflate the two, that there was no peaceful protest. No, all of them were part of the riot. No, not true. Now, Banks is looking to study the failures of intelligence and law enforcement that day. Failures that Pelosi has incentive to cover up because she's responsible for Capitol security. Republicans want to know a couple things. Why the Capitol had faulty riot shields during the attack. Why the National Guard was called late. Why the National Guard took 3 hours to arrive once they were called. Why the FBI did not warn of a potential threat until the night before on January 5. And Pelosi's committee has refused to hear testimony from a whistleblower within the Capitol Police who says he has information on all of that. But everything's fine. Don't worry. It's not political at all. It's not political at all. I like this one from John Lott Jr. He's written with the headline, with the quote, "For the People Act," unquote, Democrats, not Republicans, are the real threat to democracy. I don't have been following along where the Democrats are trying to nationalize our elections with this bill. The Constitution says the states will do the elections, and they're trying to totally trample states' rights, and they're saying they're doing it because states are trying to suppress the vote, with things like voter ID. Majority of every demographic, I'm having trouble talking today. Can I try it again? The majority of every demographic you can come up with approves of voter ID. You know why? Because it's common sense, and most developed countries do it to make sure the person voting is really who they say they are, so that they're not suppressing your legal vote with their illegal vote. So, John Lott, he says, the so-called For the People Act of 2021, it replaces state voter ID rules with a signed statement from the voter, makes permanent the pandemic's mail-in ballot voting, the mailing out of blank absentee ballots en masse, and the bill goes further, replacing the bipartisan structure of the Federal Election Commission with one-party control and regulating advertising in newspapers and other media. But again, they're doing this because they say we have to after January 6th because of this insurrection and trying to overthrow democracy. The FBI has found scant evidence that the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol was the result of an organized plot to overturn the presidential election result. No one has been charged with trying to overthrow the government. I know I said that before. I'm saying it again for emphasis because they're continuing to try to call it an insurrection. But what's really crazy is you go back just a little bit in the Wayback Machine. In 2005, The Carter-Baker Commission, right? Jimmy Carter, Jim Baker, Democrat, Republican, on federal election reform, issued a report. And here's what it said. We need a uniform system of requiring a photo ID to vote. There's widespread absentee voting that makes voter fraud more likely. Voter files contain ineligible, duplicate, fictional, and deceased voters, and that can be easily exploited using absentee ballots. No, nobody does that. Citizens whose absentee votes are more susceptible to pressure and intimidation, and vote buying schemes are easier when citizens vote by mail. So the safeguards against all that we need to actually improve upon would be eradicated under the so-called For the People Act. And, the Democrats always say we should be more like Europe. All right, let's take a look at Europe. 47 countries in Europe today, right? 46 of them currently require government-issued photo IDs to vote. The United Kingdom's the odd man out. They're about to change. 35 of the 47 European countries, including France, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, they don't allow absentee voting if you live in the country. You have to be out of country to do it, right? Another 10 European countries allow absentee voting, but first require you to show up in person to get your ballot. Then you can vote later by mail. And then John Lott Jr. goes over a history of vote fraud in Europe that led them to crank down and change their system. Well, how about Canada to our north and Mexico to our south? Our little neighbors. Canada requires photo ID to vote. If a voter shows up at the station without it, he's allowed to vote if he declares who he is in writing, and somebody at the polling station can personally verify who he is. In Mexico, they just changed recently. Voters must present a biometric ID. You have to have a photo and a thumbprint on it. And you get indelible ink applied to your thumb after you vote to prevent you from voting more than once. And absentee voting is prohibited even if you're living outside the country. Oh, man, those evil Mexicans suppressing the vote. And everybody said it was going to be horrible. And guess what? Before they instituted those improvements in Mexico, 59% of the people voted. Now 68% of the people voted. And the theory is more people are voting because now they think, hey, my vote actually counts. This is like a legit vote now. So Democrats and the media ignore what I just told you about the rules in the rest of the world because they want you to believe that the Republicans are looking to suppress the vote. They know it's not true. They don't care. The truth is voter fraud does exist, and it helps the Democrats more than it helps the Republicans. So therefore, it's really not that bad. Andrew Dalton has a great piece. Do you know the band Nirvana? All right. They had some big hits. There was a 1991 album called Nevermind. That was their big breakout hit where it had things like Feels Like Teen Spirit and Come As You Are and all that. Well, on the cover, there was a photo of a 4-month-old naked baby swimming in a pool, and there was a dollar bill on a hook in front of it. Right? It's an iconic image now. And the dude who was the little baby has sued. He's 30 years old now, and he's sued everybody in the band, everybody involved, the photographer, and he's like, this was child pornography, and I didn't give my consent, and on and on and on. Okay. His parents got paid for the photo. All right. But guess what? The lawsuit's been dismissed. It's been thrown out, at least temporarily. The lawsuit was filed in August, said Eldon had suffered lifelong damages as the band and others profited from his image. So the motion to dismiss argues that the suit was filed past the 10-year statute of limitations. Yep, it was. And another law it cites wasn't enacted until 2003 and was not a retroactive law. The motion says the lawsuit is on its face not serious, okay? And the judge threw it out and gave him up till January 27th to file again. The guy's attorneys say, well, we're talking about federal law for child pornography, so it doesn't have the statute of limitations the other one does. We'll see how all that wears out. But here's my favorite part of the story. The dude, the 30-year-old dude, his last name is Eldon. Here's what the motion from the Nirvana people's attorneys say. Eldon has spent 3 decades profiting from his celebrity as the self-anointed Nirvana baby. He has reenacted the photo in exchange for a fee many times. He has had the album title Nevermind tattooed across his chest. He has appeared on a talk show wearing a self-parroting nude-colored onesie. He has autographed copies of the album cover for sale on eBay. He has used the connection to try to pick up women. And now he was saying it's been a lifelong horrible damage to his... One of Eldon's attorneys says he filed the lawsuit when he did because he finally has the courage to hold these actors accountable. Or he's back for more money. One of the two. Oh, in North Korea, get this. The Rodong Simon newspaper has reported that Kim Jong-un is pushing the popularity of burritos and pushing propaganda that his father, Kim Jong-il, invented the burrito in 2011. Wait, okay, now, besides it just being funny, does the regime of North Korea really believe that its people are swallowing that lie that Kim Jong-il created the burrito? Really? In 2011? Kim Jong-il also wanted people to believe that he hit 11 holes in one the first time he ever played golf. I mean, you can find these kind of crazy lies throughout the history of North Korea. There's no way that people believe this, right? So why would you do that? I'm trying to get inside Kim Jong-il and Kim Jong-un's head, and I guess they're just so drunk with power, and it's such a dictatorship, and maybe it's just like, what can I make my people believe next? First time I ever went golfing, I hit 11 holes in one. You know what else? I had a burrito the other day because I invented them. All right. Hey, quick update on COVID. Whoopi Goldberg on The View, stunned to know that she has now tested positive for COVID. I'm not stunned. She's stunned. And you know why? She's stunned because she was fully vaccinated. She'd received the booster. She hadn't gone anywhere other than her house or done anything. Quote from Whoopi Goldberg. It's one of those things where you think, I've done everything I was supposed to do. Yeah, it doesn't stop Omicron, and that's the problem with the variant because it gets stronger and does different stuff. Okay, wait a second. So, welcome to the party, Whoopi. You're finally figuring out that what you've been told is not true. That, guess what? Vaccinated people can still get COVID. People who are vaccinated with a booster can still get COVID. Maybe it's time, Whoopi, to stop shaming and blaming everyone who doesn't believe exactly like you and decides, you know what, for me, I don't think this vaccine is the safest thing to do. I looked at the cost-benefit analysis, and I've decided not to get the vaccine at this time. Maybe you should stop shaming and blaming those people. Maybe you should allow people to ask questions like some of these doctors on Twitter that are bringing up some legit concerns about the vaccines and the boosters and the people that are coming up with different treatments off-label instead of just saying that they've injected themselves with horse dewormer. You know, just maybe, Whoopi, you should think of expanding your brain a little bit, but no. In the same sentence, listen to this. It's one of those things where you think I've done everything I was supposed to do. Yeah, it doesn't stop Omicron, and that's the problem with the variant because it gets stronger and does different stuff. So, you know, unless everybody gets vaccinated, this is what we're going to be facing for the next, little while. Wait, what? You're vaccinated and boosted and you got it, and you're saying the answer is to make sure everybody's vaccinated? Now listen, I am vaccinated and I'm glad I made that decision, but I don't think I should tell everybody else what to do, and I'm certainly not ready for you to force me to get a booster. Maybe we should tap the brakes a little bit and see how this is all working out. Let's see what's going on when right now it seems like more vaccinated people are getting Omicron than unvaccinated people. Maybe there's something going on here. Let's, just tap the brakes a little bit, Whoopi. And finally, Leah Barukas on COVID. With booster shots being increasingly pushed and many institutions now requiring them, she's pointing out that Anthony Fauci is changing the term fully vaccinated. Here's from Fauci. We're using the terminology now, keeping your vaccinations up to date, rather than what fully vaccinated means. So not fully vaccinated, but keeping your vaccinations up to date, including the booster shots. Oh, also he wants to change mandates to requirements. People seem to respond better than that. That's great. And the Politico is reporting that the White House has a new COVID strategy. Health officials inside and outside his administration, Biden, privately acknowledged that there's little new left for the federal government to do, but hold on and hope the worst is over soon. What? So Biden went from, I will shut down this virus, to hold on and hope the worst is over soon. That's really a good motto for his entire presidency, right? We've got 1 year down. We got 3 more to go. Hold on and hope the worst is over soon. I don't know, Joe, but maybe you should be trying to get more tests going, more monoclonal treatments, more pills, more studies on other treatments so we can actually save some lives. That might be good, but hold on and hope the worst is over soon. Daily Mail reporting Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App, they will now have to report transactions totaling more than $600 to the IRS because Biden plans to ramp up financial enforcement. So if you use Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App, get ready for the IRS to know even more about you. Sounds great. My name's Greg Knapp. This is the Greg Knapp Experience.